Good afternoon. Welcome back to another fun edition of Keeping It Real with Jeff Richardson. I am your host. Thanks for tuning in and checking us out. We have another great guest getting ready to come your way. I am going to be joined here momentarily by the beautiful, very, very interesting former adult star Rachel Madori is going to join us. She was a porn sensation, one of the biggest names in the industry. She had a legion of fans around the world. We're going to talk to her about her time in the industry. She's also a very, very well-known mental health advocate. We're going to talk to her. She deals with bipolar, borderline personality disorder, depression, and some other things. We're going to talk to her. She has an amazing website, rachelmadori.com. She's got a lot of cool blogs on there, interviews, just background information about her, information about mental health. Make sure you check her website out. Go to my YouTube page right now, man. If you are fans of the adult industry, this is where you need to be. We have literally had on, with this new channel and also with my old previous channel, we've had on the biggest names in the industry. Go on there. We've had Cherie DeVille, Lily Kate. I can just go on and on with some of the big name porn stars we've had. Riley Reyes, Angelina Castro, Courtney Combs. It just goes on and on and on. They come on. They always show love. The interviews are very, very interesting, and we want you guys to spread the word, tell a friend, help us grow. You can do that by following me on Twitter, and you can also go to my Facebook page, Keeping It Real with Jeff Richardson. Like the page on there. I put pictures of all my past guests. There's links to the interviews. All that stuff is on there. So make sure you do that. Become part of our family, and follow Rachel on Twitter as well. So anyway, you guys go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. While you're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and get Rachel on the line, and we're going to get right into our interview. And as promised, we are joined right now by the beautiful, very, very intelligent Rachel Madori. Rachel, how's your afternoon going so far?
Pretty good, pretty good. My day off, which is nice.
That is, I'm sure that's rare for you these days.
Yeah, definitely. So I just try and take it in strides and keep relaxing.
Gotcha. Let's get right into it. So when you were growing up, I'm going to assume, like, were you like most kids, the average little kid when you were growing up? Did you, what did you see yourself doing? Did you want to be a movie star? Did you want to be a doctor, a lawyer? What kind of kid were you?
I'm not sure, my kind of aspirations jumped all over the place. I mean, I wanted to do a lot of different things. I wanted to work in forensic science. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer at one point, and then I actually got into the restaurant industry very, very young, at like 12, 13 years old. Mm-hmm. And then I actually fell in love with like hospitality and service and everything like that, so I actually did proceed working in restaurants for most of my years, for about 8 years. And then I got into adult films for 3 years, and then recently retired from that last year. So now I'm back working in the restaurant industry, and actually studying fine dining and studying for my sommelier certification.
Gotcha. And I know you mentioned you left the adult industry, but let's just talk real quick about that. So with some of your experiences, your website is very, very deep. There's a lot of things that you touch on. When you were in that, with your borderline personality and the bipolar and some of the depression and things like that you talked to, what were your experiences in the industry? Did you see a lot of other girls that you sort of suspected may have some of those issues going on? Was that something that you felt was common?
No, to be honest, I didn't feel like it was common. I mean, that's something that even if you were struggling with, people don't really, it's not really something that you tell other people. I mean, not most girls in the industry would just be open about it. And anyone I knew, no, I didn't know of anyone struggling with that. And, until my blog, I was more open on that. And then some, different performers and stuff would come to me and talk to me because they knew that I would be open about it. But I don't think that those are super prevalent in the industry. But I don't know. People are really good at not, putting their whole selves out there. So, I mean, it could be, but from what I experienced, I mean, most of the people I met seemed pretty normal.
Gotcha. So when do you start? One of the things with mental health that makes it so tough is it's really hard to diagnose a lot of the stuff. Some of the stuff you can't like do a blood test to find out if someone's, has certain personality disorders or anxiety or depression. What were some of the signs and some of the early things that you started to go through that really started to make you think maybe I need some real, professional help or something?
Well, I started developing symptoms at a very young age, like around 12 years old, but I didn't, I grew up in a time period where, no one thought about or talked about or knew much about mental illness. So I went like 10 years just kind of getting through life and not understanding that I was having symptoms and that I was, mentally unstable. I just assumed everybody, lived that way. But what made me actually get help was, my whole life, I experienced different suicide attempts when I was young, and I just kept assuming I'm young, I'm just going through hormones, or I just don't know how to handle this, and I just assumed that was normal. I assumed that every kid went through what I was going through. But then once I got older and I moved out, and I thought I would be stable, and then I attempted another suicide attempt. I was like, okay, well, this isn't normal. This isn't hormones. I can't blame this on being a teenager. There's something going on. And then, I started practicing with psychedelic medicine and, tripping for a few years and kind of getting this overall perspective of my life. I was kind of given this blueprint to the past, decade of my life, and all my symptoms and all these patterns just made sense to me from the ages of 12 up until, at that point I was, 20 years old, 22 years old. And I was just shown all these patterns, and they didn't make sense. And I talked to other people, and I talked to the charity I work with now, with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and everyone kept telling me this isn't normal, because I went through my whole life just assuming everybody lived like this. So that's when I pursued seeing a doctor, and I saw a few different ones on the East Coast and the West Coast, and just to get, just different diagnoses from them. But yeah, it took me. Some people never get to see one, but yeah, it took me over 10 years to even realize that I had a problem, which is crazy because when I look back now, it was clear I had an issue, but it was just such a society where you didn't talk about it. It wasn't something that was really real to most people.
Absolutely. What's that like? You took the industry by storm. You became famous very, very quickly. You became one of the biggest names in the industry. How do you deal with fame? When you have bipolar and you have those issues, is it almost a surreal experience being thrown into that, where people are recognizing you and following your every move, and you're struggling behind the scenes with these kind of issues?
Yeah, I think at first it was difficult because, especially just with your online presence or having to be at events, and having to show up on set, it was very difficult to constantly just keep this, performer mentality and this performer face, and you're always happy, and you're always super sexual, and you're always pretty, and it was difficult to, keep that up, and then also be dealing with whatever was going on in my head at the time, or even going to events and meeting fans, or going to, industry events and having to be around a bunch of people, and, being in groups of people was very difficult for me, and, gave me a lot of anxiety, and I just, even in a room full of people, I constantly felt, I just felt alone. It was difficult, but I think eventually when I stopped hiding it, it got easier. Like when I started talking about it more on my blog, or I started talking about it more on Twitter, and I started being more open about it, it just got easier because I didn't feel like I was hiding anything anymore.
Gotcha. You were very, very open about a suicide attempt, that you're a suicide survivor. Tell us about that time. Obviously, it would have been a very, very dark time in your life. What were some of the things that were going on that led you to that point? And another thing I wanted to ask you about, sort of a two-part question, because a lot of times people will say that suicide, sometimes when people do that, it's actually just a cry for help. They don't actually want to die. What was your experience personally like with that?
Well, that's the thing, is it's so different for so many other people. Like, there are people that, but even if that's the thing, even if you are doing it for attention, or if you're doing it as a cry for help, like that's still, that's still something serious. I know there's been situations where, people I've known have attempted, and people I know have attempted, and you know, everyone around them, all their whole circle, just like, you're just doing this for attention, you're just doing this so someone notices you. But obviously, like, then there's a fucking problem there. Like, there's something internally going on. Someone needs to notice them, to come to the point where you're willing to end your own life, or at least try to end your own life, just to get someone to say, I'm here for you. Like, that's something that needs to be addressed. And there's so many different reasons, you know, there's so many different catalysts for suicide and for someone to die by suicide. And, I mean, to answer your question of what was going on with me, it's kind of difficult to explain, because my suicide attempts are never, like, they're never caused by something. It's never, okay, this is happening in my life and I'm miserable and there's no way out, which that is the case for a lot of people. But in my case, and all the other cases that's happened previously, the first time happened when I was 14, and it's happened 4 times since then. The last official time that I actually did almost succeed in that was when I was 22, which was 2 years ago. And I was very depressed, like, because of the bipolar, I go through waves of depression and serious dips in depression. But in my case, it's not a choice for me. In my case, I disassociate, which I just lose control of my body, basically. So I can see everything I'm doing, but I can't control it.
Wow.
And something else takes control of me and just makes me do it. And that's very difficult to explain. But it's very difficult to explain to other people, you know, even my husband and my parents. And it's very hard for them to understand that I could, you know, cut myself in my kitchen and not have a reason for it.
No doubt.
So it's difficult for anybody to comprehend. Even, you know, Zach, I love him to death. He's my life partner, you know, and he wants a reason. Why are you doing this? And, like, I don't know why I'm doing this. Or when I was younger, you know, and I attempted, my parents are like, why are you doing this? And I just didn't know. It's just a weird, I don't know, when I haven't had one in a few years, which I'm grateful for, but when I have something severe like that happen to me, I lose control. It's not a choice on my part. It's me watching, you know, my body do something that I can't stop.
Wow.
Unless, you know, maybe I can force myself to run into a hospital and tell them what's about to happen, and force myself to, you know, run to someone and tell them I'm about to do this. But it's kind of like I'm not me anymore, and I watch what's happening, you know, without being able to, you know, intervene.
That is amazing. That is amazing to I can't even grasp that really as outside looking in. That is incredibly complex. We're visiting with Rachel Midori. A few more questions for you. I'll let you go. Rachel, what about, you know, when people are trying to fight these illnesses, you know, you hear a lot about people self-medicating and they're mixing, you know, street drugs, marijuana, cocaine, meth, alcohol. What are the effects of that? I'm sure it just makes everything more intense and amplified. What are your experiences for what people that you may know, or what things that you might have gone through? What are the effects of that?
Well, especially with bipolar, it's so common for drug abuse, because people are just trying to make things better in their mind. You know, I mean, experience-wise, you know, my perspective on that is, you know, my mind and existing was just chaos for most of my life through growing up. And then when I was a teenager and I first found drugs, I was so happy, because the first time I did them, it was the first time I was ever not in, you know, this prison in my mind. They made me high, they made me happy, and I didn't know what it was like to be happy like that, like, you know, for a consistent amount of time. And I did get hooked on drugs for a while, because that was the one time in my life where everything seemed clear, because it was doing something that my brain just couldn't do normally. You know, so self-medicating is extremely prevalent. It's very common. Drug abuse and alcohol abuse is all very common with people with bipolar, because they're just trying to either hide what's going on in their head, or to make the chaos stop, or to kind of just find a level, like just a level-headedness that just doesn't exist when you're like this. So it is very prevalent, you know, mixing everything together is prevalent. And just basically, it's just kind of like a last-ditch effort to do something to make the chaos stop.
Absolutely.
Which I completely understand, but I'm so grateful to have had my family and have my parents who helped me, stop abusing drugs. But there's another path for that, because you could go on prescriptions, which I'm not opposed to. My family members who, I inherited this disease from, they take prescriptions and they're helping them as far as I can tell, and I'm grateful for that. And I'm not against prescriptions for mental illnesses, or I'm not against prescriptions for bipolar. And if you speak to a, very straight-edge doctor, I am required to be on medication. But once I started experiencing, psychedelics, and I started practicing, with these beautiful medicines and what they taught me and what they've helped me learn about my illness and my mind, that's when I started researching them more specifically for mental illness, and specifically, how can these help me with my bipolar and with my borderline, because there's so many studies being done with MDMA and psilocybin and LSD, and ancient plant medicines like ayahuasca and iboga. They're all being studied right now for depression, for alcoholism, for anxiety, and for a lot of mental illnesses. It's just, there's been decades of propaganda against them, which is why there's such pushback. So what I started doing is I'm researching microdosing, for mood disorders, because there hasn't been research done for microdosing LSD for bipolar or borderline. And I've been on my regimen for about 2 months now, and my symptoms have been greatly reduced, and I've had minimal to, not severe episodes, which is crazy for me to be able to go 2 months and not have a severe episode. So, I'm kind of torn. I'm not against prescriptions, but there are so many other options out there that are so viable for other people, but they're not being studied because of decades of bullshit, frankly, propaganda against them.
Definitely. You have an awesome website, your blogs. You have some really, really interesting, deep blogs. I know that you've touched a lot of people with your website because of the fan base that you have. It's been a great platform for you. What have been like some really, really cool personal stories where someone said you helped them, like something they read at one of your blogs or something they saw on your website, just you sharing your story, that you helped someone else maybe reach out and get help, or professional help or counseling or whatever? What's something that really stands out to you?
The one thing that really stands out to me is this gentleman who read my blog, or still reads it, I'm not sure, but he emailed me. It was a while ago, and I just still remember it to this day. I think I have the email saved every week sometimes when I'm feeling down. And his wife is bipolar, and their relationship, has been on the rocks because it's hell living with someone like this.
Yeah.
My love can speak from that, from experience. It's not easy. And it's confusing, you have to figure it out together. It's all these weird puzzle pieces and all these contingency plans, and all these dark realities that you don't want to talk about, that you have to fix together, and sometimes he'll wake up to a person that's not me, and he has to figure out, his coping mechanisms to deal with that. So I talk a lot about that on my website as well, and I got an email from this gentleman who said that his wife is bipolar, and there's a lot of things that she couldn't put into words, that he couldn't put into words, that I was able to put out there and explain. And it kind of made him feel like he wasn't alone, and it made him feel like maybe that it is possible, to love someone like this and to be able to support someone like this and, go through life with someone like this, which was really touching me, because I never thought my words would make that much of an impact that could possibly, save this couple, just from them knowing that they're not alone, and, she may not be okay, and she may need help, and she may, need some more care than someone who doesn't have these issues. But, the fact that he was able to reach out and say that my words helped him in any way, like, that was invaluable to me. That was beautiful.
No doubt. That is a very, very cool, touching story. Absolutely. Well, Rachel, before you go, we have a segment called Rapid Fire. I know that you are, like you mentioned earlier, you're very, very into cooking. So I want to ask you, so if you were going to have a first date with someone, I know you're involved in a very serious relationship, but if you're going to try and really, really impress somebody, what's your best dish? What would you cook to make that you're going to invite them over for dinner? What are you going to make?
So I don't cook. I'm not really good at cooking. That's why I study wine, and I prefer studying wine and studying like service and fine dining and front of house and everything like that. But if I had to really whip something together for a first date and they were coming over, I would have to do something that involves foie gras because that's my favorite. That's one of my favorite delicacies. So it's foie gras with something. I mean, I'm not a cook, so I have no idea what I'd put with that. But I'm pretty sure if I cooked some foie gras for anybody that walked into my apartment, they would fall in love with me instantly. So I think I would just have to go with that.
Gotcha. What's your favorite restaurant, favorite place to eat in L.A.?
Favorite place in LA? I'd probably go with either Ink or Birch.
All right. Tell us something unusual or quirky about you. Do you have any weird habits or superstitions, something we would never expect?
A weird habit or superstition? I must have a weird habit. I'm trying to think what one of my weird habits is.
All right. The best concert you've ever attended?
My Chemical Romance at Warped Tour when I was like 14 years old.
All right. And the last one, we had a bunch of fans that wanted to ask this, so I'm just going to throw it out there. Any chance we ever see you back on this screen in the industry, or is that something that's part of your past and you're done with that forever?
No, I think, when I retired, I decided that was that, and I don't think it's bad to go back into the industry, if other performers do, but I'm just really holding steadfast to this point of, sticking to the fine dining industry and kind of trying to pave my way in that. Sure. I just kind of feel like I paved my way in the adult industry. I came to this crossroad, and it was time for me to pave my way in a different industry, and this one is a bit more difficult for me to get a stronghold in. So I'm gonna stick to this.
I respect that. Well, before you go, promote yourself. Let us know how we can follow you. I know your website, your social media. Let us know what current projects you've got going on. How can fans and viewers stay in touch with everything you've got going on?
Yeah, definitely. So my website, number one, RachelMadori.com, RachelMadori. All my blogs are up there. When my shop comes up, eventually that'll be up there. My Twitter and my Instagram are both at Rachel Madori. So you can follow me there and check out everything that's going on. I'll do all my updates on there. So anything new coming out, you'll definitely find out if you follow me.
Sounds good. I really enjoyed the conversation. You're a very, very bright, intelligent young lady. I am a big fan of yours. I know you got a lot of other fans out there. Thank you for showing love and hanging out for a few minutes. I appreciate your time and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Awesome. Thank you so much for calling. It was so nice talking to you.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Rachel Madori, cool girl. Like I said, go to her website right now. Check it out. You're going to find a lot of cool things. If you're struggling with mental depression or any type of mental illness, don't be ashamed. There's a lot of help out there, a lot of resources. Make sure you check those out. Go to my YouTube channel right now. You're going to see a lot of other great interviews just like this. Like I said, there's more on the way. Subscribe. Retweet the interview, retweet the link, all that stuff. Show love, spread the word. Tell your friends about us. We are going to be growing. We got a lot of cool stuff. We're going to be doing some traveling, some face-to-face sit-down interviews coming up this summer and fall, so you don't want to miss that. Go to my Facebook page right now, Keeping It Real with Jeff Richardson. Like the page and follow me on Twitter, JRichardson402. Positive people doing positive things, and we are out.